finally here. We finally reached the 11th book of the Barsoom series by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and it is aptly named John Carter of Mars. Now, almost got a little bit of mixed feelings about that, but then again, I'll explain that later, because this one has two stories, one complete, one incomplete. Let's start with the complete one, because that's the order it's in. It's John Carter versus the Giant of Mars. Now, what it is, John Carter and Deja Torres were out flying, enjoying a wonderful day, and then they sense there was a bit of a danger, and when the danger is over, John Carter finds that Deja Torres is instantly kidnapped. And when he comes back and set up a search, he is now given a message that Deja Torres is now held prisoner by this very cruel warlord who's trying to conquer all of what he can at Barsoom. He wants access to certain resources, and if he does so, he'll release Deja Torres. Well, Carter sets up, tries to get all his men to do a search to find out who kidnapped her and trying to rescue her as quickly as possible. Well, he does. They eventually, with the help of Tars Tarkas and others, they set out a search. They find a city where she's located at, so Carter quickly goes there and he finds this abandoned city. And this abandoned city is, in it was this huge giant, very grotesque, monstrous thing. And when he finally escapes that, and after a few more adventures, he finds the leader of this war of this army here. It turns out to be one of the synthetic men of Mars, one of the hormads, who's gained his own intelligent enough to start raising these things, use his own, try to use the resources himself to set up an army of these giant birds of Mars and and what have you. And he's planning to try to go after helium. So after some death-defying escapes, trying to get him, Deja Torres, and Tars Tarkas out of it, they try to do what they can to get the armies ready and try and conquer them. It's a pretty simple, straightforward story. I have to tell you, this last book right here, at least in the volume I have in this, was only like 120 pages, and this is the first half. So it's a very straightforward story of, again, Carter doing what he normally does to protect the people he cares about, all in this wonderful exotic land. If you like your story simple, straightforward, this is a nice one to do it. Now, the second part here, this is the Skeleton Men of Jupiter. And I gotta tell you, this is incomplete. I mean, to me, it ends just enough to where I could see as a happy ending, because I figured he's gonna, despite the fact that it leaves off in a cliffhanger, in a sense, it's still incomplete. What it is that Carter is, he's out at night one day, and he gets kidnapped instantly by these men who they look just like these, they look like skeletons, but it just turns out that their skin is so stretched tight over them, they just look like skeletons, and they're from Jupiter. This story is going to take place, like one of the previous stories. This is actually going to be interplanetary, where the previous one, it was just one of the previous novels, they go to the moon. This one, they're actually going to Jupiter. And like Mars, of course, Jupiter is, despite is not, it is habitable, and you get to get a good imagery in this first part. So he's captured, looks very bleak and everything. You get a bit of society, and now he has been captured and been told to kind of cooperate with him, because the people of Jupiter are trying to conquer Mars and wherever other planet they can get a hold of. But Carter is, he's like, no, I'm not going to do it, regardless of the consequence. And they went all the way and captured Deja Torres. So to add that to the mix, because you gotta have a woman to rescue in these type of stories. And so that's sort of the deal. He gets captured. He gets Deja Torres out of danger, but he has to do it. He has to escape separately. And the story ends where he finally escapes to the city where Deja Torres was held protection. But it just ends there. It doesn't talk about how he conquers the men of Jupiter, what he goes about it. And I think what it is that this is part of the story that was supposed to be continued, like Lana Gothel. It's at like 3 or 4 parts, but Burroughs didn't get to finish it, so it leaves off in a note. But it's written in such a way at the ending of this part where you feel it has a feeling that it has a good ending towards it. So So as a part of me is disappointed, but not entirely. I don't know if you ever felt like that with a story like this before. And it's not the first time with Burroughs I come across where he had an incomplete story before he died. I did a review in Beyond the Furthest Stars, and that was only like again, that was supposed to be the start of a new series, but it only did like 2 parts, and it kind of leaves off a hit cliffhanger as that. If you read that, you know exactly how this final book, John Carter of Mars, ends. So I don't know if there's any pastiches of a writer's attempt to finish it, and in some way I have my mixed views of that. Just go, for say like Robert Jordan, Frank Herbert, they had that happen with their works were incomplete. But you had to be very popular, and there had to be a huge market for your work to actually have someone else finish your work post humorously. But so there you go. That's the final book of the 11th book of John Carter Mars. When I started this over a decade ago, I've only read like the first 6. I want to read them again. This time I read them all, but I wanted to start over from where I left off to absorb the things I have forgotten. And there's plenty I've forgotten, but I enjoyed them for what they are. And I think that, well, you may find some stuff that you find dated or cliched and all that, but bear in mind it was stuff like this, the early 1900s, with that and Along the Pulps, that influenced so much of our entertainment, particularly in science fiction and fantasy. If you're a role player and you dealt with a lot of different role-playing games, some of the stuff you are familiar with that are tropes, cliches, and all that originate from stuff like this. Heck, there's even a tabletop role-playing game that came out not too long ago that takes place on this. So so it has a very rich world to take and play in. If you will love that good old-fashioned adventure, particularly in the exotic planetary romance. So. And it's always good to go back to original sources of the things that you, do, especially if you're into things of such forms of entertainment. Go back to the original source. Whether you like it or hate it, you can at least respect it. So there you go. I did it. All 11 books of the John Carter series. I have them all in 4 volumes here, but you can get them in many other forms as well. Go out. If you don't want to find paperbacks, if there's no used bookstore, you can easily get them on audiobooks. Go to YouTube, you can get the audiobooks of just about every book. Not to have a search for every book, but I definitely, some of the first ones, the first 3 at least. If anything, the first 3 that were focused on John Carter's adventures. And play them while you're painting miniatures or, just sitting there doing your homework or what have you. But there you go. John Carter Mars. All 11 books finally reviewed. So go out and give it a shot. Thank you all for watching for this, and you all have a nice day.